Now, here is a portion of President Barack Obama's speech delivered this morning in Mesa, Arizona, describing the terms of his foreclosure prevention program. This is only a portion of the address. To see the entire address, go to cspan.com. You can access the C-SPAN homepage just below the Emeritus News window.
The plan I'm announcing focuses on rescuing families who played by the rules and acted responsibly, by refinancing loans for millions of families in traditional mortgages who are underwater or close to it, by modifying loans for families stuck in subprime mortgages they can't afford as a result of skyrocketing interest rates or personal misfortune, and by taking broader steps to keep mortgage rates low so that families can secure loans with affordable monthly payments. At the same time, this plan must be viewed in a larger context. A lost home often begins with a lost job. Many businesses have laid off workers for a lack of revenue and available capital. Credit has become scarce as markets have been overwhelmed by the collapse of securities backed by failing mortgages. In the end, the home mortgage crisis, the financial crisis, and this broader economic crisis are all interconnected. And we can't successfully address any one of them without addressing them all. So yesterday in Denver, I signed into law the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, which will create or save The act will create or save 3.5 million jobs over the next 2 years, including 70,000 right here in Arizona. Right here. Doing the work America needs done. And we're also going to work to stabilize, repair, and reform our financial system to get credit flowing again to families and businesses. And we will pursue the housing plan I'm outlining today. And through this plan, we will help between 7 and 9 million families restructure or refinance their mortgages so they can avoid foreclosure. And we're not just helping homeowners at risk of falling over the edge, we're preventing their neighbors from being pulled over that edge too, as defaults and foreclosures contribute to sinking home values and failing local businesses and lost jobs. But I want to be very clear about what this plan will not do. It will not rescue the unscrupulous or irresponsible by throwing good taxpayer money after bad loans. It will not help speculators who took risky bets on a rising market and bought homes not to live in but to sell. It will not help dishonest lenders who acted irresponsibly, distorting the facts and dismissing the fine print at the expense of buyers who didn't know better. And it will not reward folks who bought homes they knew from the beginning they would never be able to afford. So I just want to make this clear. This plan will not save every home, but it will give millions of families resigned to financial ruin a chance to rebuild. It will prevent the worst consequences of this crisis from wreaking even greater havoc on the economy. And by bringing down the foreclosure rate, it will help to shore up housing prices for everybody. According to estimates by the Treasury Department, this plan could stop the slide in home prices due to neighboring foreclosures by up to $6,000 per home. So here's how my plan works. First, we will make it possible for an estimated 4 to 5 million currently ineligible homeowners who received their mortgages through Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac to refinance their mortgages at a lower rate. Today, as a result of declining home values, millions of families are what's called underwater, which simply means that they owe more on their mortgages than their homes are currently worth. And these families are unable to sell their homes, but they're also unable to refinance them. So in the event of a job loss or another emergency, their options are limited. Also right now, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, the institutions that guarantee home loans for millions of middle-class families, are generally not permitted to guarantee refinancing for mortgages valued at more than 80% of the home's worth. So families who are underwater or close to being underwater can't turn to these lending institutions for help. My plan changes that by removing this restriction on Fannie and Freddie so they can refinance mortgages they already own or guarantee. And what this will do is it'll allow millions of families stuck with loans at a higher rate to refinance. And the estimated cost to taxpayers would be roughly zero. While Fannie and Freddie would receive less money in payments, this would be balanced out by a reduction in defaults and foreclosures. So, I also want to point out that millions of other households could benefit from historically low interest rates if they refinance, though many don't know that this opportunity is available to them, meaning some of you. An opportunity that could save your families hundreds of dollars each month. And the efforts we are taking to stabilize mortgage markets will help you, borrowers, secure more affordable terms too. Now, the second thing we're going to do under this plan is we will create new incentives so that lenders work with borrowers to modify the terms of subprime loans at risk of default and foreclosure. Subprime loans, loans with high rates and complex terms that often conceal their costs, make up only 12% of all mortgages but account for roughly half of all foreclosures. Right now, when families with these mortgages seek to modify a loan to avoid this fate, they often find themselves navigating a maze of rules and regulations, but they rarely find answers. Some subprime lenders are willing to renegotiate, but many aren't. And your ability to restructure your loan depends on where you live, the company that owns or manages your loan, or even the agent who happens to answer the phone on the day that you call. So here's what my plan does. Establishes clear guidelines for the entire mortgage industry that will encourage lenders to modify mortgages on primary residences. Any institution that wishes to receive financial assistance from the government, from taxpayers, and to modify home mortgages will have to do so according to these guidelines, which will be in place 2 weeks from today. Here's what this means. If lenders and home buyers work together and the lender agrees to offer rates that the borrower can afford, then we'll make up part of the gap between what the old payments were and what the new payments will be. Under this plan, lenders who participate will be required to reduce those payments to no more than 31% of a borrower's income. And this will enable as many as 3 to 4 million homeowners to modify the terms of their mortgages to avoid foreclosure. So this part of the plan will require both buyers and lenders to step up and do their part, to take on some responsibility. Lenders will need to lower interest rates and share in the costs of reducing monthly payments in order to prevent another wave of foreclosures. Borrowers will be required to make payments on time in return for this opportunity to reduce those payments. And I also want to be clear that there will be a cost associated with this plan. But by making these investments in foreclosure prevention today, we will save ourselves the costs of foreclosure tomorrow. Costs that are borne not just by families with troubled loans, but by their neighbors and communities and by our economy as a whole. Given the magnitude of these crises, it is a price well worth paying. There's a third part of the plan. We will take major steps to keep mortgage rates low for millions of middle-class families looking to secure new mortgages. Today, most new home loans are backed by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, which guarantee loans and set standards to keep mortgage rates low and to keep mortgage financing available and predictable for middle-class families. Now, this function is profoundly important, especially now, as we grapple with a crisis that would only worsen if we were to allow further disruptions in our mortgage markets. Therefore, using the funds already approved by Congress for this purpose, The Treasury Department and the Federal Reserve will continue to purchase Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac mortgage-backed securities so that there is stability and liquidity in the marketplace. Through its existing authority, Treasury will provide up to $200 billion in capital to ensure that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac can continue to stabilize markets and hold mortgage rates down. And we're also going to work with Fannie and Freddie on other strategies to bolster the mortgage market, like working with state housing finance agencies to increase their liquidity. And as we seek to ensure that these institutions continue to perform what is a vital function on behalf of middle-class families, we also need to maintain transparency and strong oversight so that they do so in responsible and effective ways. Fourth, we will pursue a wide range of reforms designed to help families stay in their homes and avoid foreclosures. And my administration will continue to support reforming our bankruptcy rules so that we allow judges to reduce home mortgages on primary residences to their fair market value, as long as borrowers pay their debts under court-ordered plans. I just want everybody to understand that's the rule for investors who own 2, 3, and 4 homes. So it should be the rule for folks who just own 1 home as an alternative to foreclosure. In addition, as part of the recovery plan I signed into law yesterday, we are going to award $2 billion in competitive grants to communities that are bringing together stakeholders and testing new and innovative ways to limit the effects of foreclosures. Communities have shown a lot of initiative, taking responsibility for this crisis when many others have not. And supporting these neighborhood efforts is exactly what we should be doing. So, taken together, the provisions of this plan will help us end this crisis and preserve for millions of families their stake in the American dream. But we also have to acknowledge the limits of this plan. Our housing crisis was born of eroding home values, but it was also an erosion of our common values, and in some cases, common sense. It was brought about by big banks that traded in risky mortgages in return for profits that were literally too good to be true, by lenders who knowingly took advantage of home buyers, by home buyers who knowingly borrowed too much from lenders, by speculators who gambled on ever-rising prices, and by leaders in our nation's capital who failed to act amidst a deepening crisis. So, solving this crisis will require more than resources. It will require all of us to step back and take responsibility. Government has to take responsibility for setting rules of the road that are fair and fairly enforced. Banks and lenders must be held accountable for ending the practices that got us into this crisis in the first place. And each of us as individuals have to take responsibility for their own actions. That means all of us have to learn to live within our means again and not assume that that housing prices are going to go up 20, 30, 40% every year. You know, those core values of common sense and responsibility, those are the values that have defined this nation. Those are the values that have given substance to our faith in the American dream. Those are the values we have to restore now, at this defining moment. It will not be easy, but if we move forward with purpose and resolve, with a deepened appreciation of how fundamental the American dream is and how fragile it can be when we fail to live up to our collective responsibilities, if we go back to our roots, our core values, I am absolutely confident we will overcome this crisis and once again secure that dream, not just for ourselves, but for generations to come. Thank you. God bless you. God bless the United States of America.
You've been listening to an address delivered this morning by President Barack Obama in Mesa, Arizona, describing terms of his new foreclosure prevention program. You can see the entire address at cspan.com. You can access the C-SPAN homepage below the Emeritus News window.